And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another episode of Doing the Work, the first show on the Back Home Network covering IU women's basketball. I'm your host, Jeff Marlow. I'm also joined by our co-host, Kathy Amos. Tonight, we are discussing your Indiana Hoosiers' 68-52 victory, your number 2 ranked Indiana Hoosiers over the number 12/13 Michigan Wolverines. This takes the women's record to 25-1 overall, 15-1 in the Big Ten, and keeps them a game and a half ahead of Iowa in the standings. But let's start this show the way we start every show, and that is with our banner moment. And Kathy, I'm going to go tonight, the banner moment. Tonight, officially, we talked about this the other night, but 25 wins is a record for this program, single season wins. Hopefully, obviously, I don't want us to be done. We want to keep adding to it. But kudos to Terry Morn, her staff, the players. The 2022-23 team is going to go down in the record books, at least at this moment, for having the most wins in a season by an IU women's basketball team. So congrats to the Hoosiers, and let's keep it going. Our banner moment is sponsored by Home Field Apparel. Home Field is constantly releasing new schools or updating their products for schools in their existing line. You are bound to find something for you or anyone in your life that just loves great collegiate gear. They are always refreshing current schools or coming out with new ones. So whether you want only IU gear or other college teams or nothing associated with the team, Home Field probably has something for you. Not only do you get quality apparel, but you are supporting an Indiana-based business that has its roots in the Kelley School of Business. Go to homefieldapparel.com and use our promo code HOME, H-O-M-E, to get 15% off your entire first order. That's promo code HOME, H-O-M-E, for 15% off. Once again, the website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. So we're going to throw it over to my co-host, Kathy Amos, here for the Amos angle and get her initial thoughts about the game.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jeff. So absolutely huge congratulations to the team on another record-setting game. And not only did they set the record for most wins, but they also officially clinched the double bye for that Big Ten tournament. So we know for sure they'll finish at a minimum in the top 4. Obviously expecting a lot higher things from this team, but a big congratulations to the team with 2 games to go and having clinched that double bye there for us. So also want to give a congratulations to Mackenzie Holmes. She had just a fantastic game blocking, and she moved into second all time in the program for most blocks in program history. So congratulations all around to our team. You know what, I think we'll get into it a bit here, but it was an up and down game, right? We saw some really long stretches of fantastic play from our team, really long stretches, especially in the beginning of that fourth quarter, that maybe weren't the best that we've seen from them, not the most focused. But at the end, not only did they pull out the win, but they pulled it out actually quite comfortably against a very good Michigan team. Even if they are down one of their better players, this is still a really fantastic win for our program.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like you said, congrats to Mackenzie on moving into second place. Let's talk a little bit about the kind of the flow of the game. 2 things. Number one, I want to get your thoughts on. First half, we had moments where we looked really good on the offensive end. We had 2 separate 10-0 or 10-plus run, 10-0 plus runs in the first half. And then in the second half, we had 2 different segments of where we went at least 4.5, 5 minutes without scoring at all. So just kind of get your thoughts on how we looked so good in the first half for moments. And then in the second half, we had long stretches of not looking good.
Yeah, it was about an 11-0 run, I think, for Michigan to start that fourth quarter. In the first 6 minutes, I wrote down we didn't score in that fourth quarter until 3:53 left in the game. And luckily at that point we had built a fairly comfortable margin, which I'm thinking that might be it. Like, we did have a couple of our subs on the floor during a long stretch of that game. And, just not maybe a one of the units or five people that we usually see playing together out there. So they just looked a bit disjointed. And, Coach Moore finally called that timeout and got all the starters back out there, and we seemed for it to settle down. So to me, I guess I was thinking it was kind of a combination of the fact that we had such a comfortable margin, and, it's kind of human nature. They see the scoreboard too. And it's, as much as we like to say, you can't take your foot off the gas, it's got to be hard not to when you're up by, what we were up 24 points at the end of that third quarter. It's hard not to. Plus, then again, having that combination of some players that really probably haven't played as much game time together as they, as our starting five obviously have. So to me, that's kind of the combination of what we saw with that down period in the fourth quarter. But what about you? Did you have any different thoughts on that?
I did not like it. I don't like. I thought the offense looked. I thought they looked like they lost focus. And again, I think that there's, to a certain degree, that's natural. You look at the scoreboard. You're up by 24 at the end of the third quarter. But I also, as we were talking about before we went on there, you know what? Get it out of your system. Better to have it tonight when you already had a 20-plus point lead than have it sometime in the NCAA tournament where you're in a dogfight at the end of the third quarter. Now a 5-6 minute scoring drought really is going to doom you. So I'm okay with that, because I'm a big believer that sometimes you want to get things like that out of the way before we get into a much bigger a game that has much more on the line with that. But also, Kathy, and we're not usually one to talk about the officiating too much, but you and I were texting. Thought really the officiating in the second half, and maybe even toward the end of the first half, I really felt like the officiating kind of took some of the flow away from the game.
Yeah, I did too. I thought, in the first half, for example, Indiana had 6 fouls total. And halfway into the third quarter, we had 6 fouls already as a team, and had put Michigan into that bonus level. I didn't feel like we were playing that much differently on defense or on offense, because, there was quite a few offensive fouls that they called too. And it just seemed to take away flow. It didn't seem as bad in the first half. It was a bit, choppy here and there, I thought, with some of the whistles. It was just a very inconsistently called game, maybe even a little more so than we're used to seeing. Often I feel, at least earlier in the year when I've watched women's basketball, that the refs don't call nearly as many fouls, and they kind of let the game play. And tonight in particular, it felt like they were really starting to whistle some calls that earlier in the year you wouldn't. And they were just very inconsistent too. There was times where you would see something on one end of the court and you're like, how is that a foul? But on the other end, it's not a foul. And for both sides, to be honest, I thought it was really inconsistent. And when you get that, it's hard, I would think, as a player and as a coach to know how to make any kind of adjustments. How do you make adjustments when you're, this person's getting called for a charge, but this person's not? And what do you do with that? And yes, it takes away from the flow of the game. It's hard to watch then as well.
Yeah, I felt like it really started to turn when Nolan got that technical foul toward the end of the first half.
Yeah.
And I felt like the officials felt like they had to kind of start tightening up on calls. And Michigan really was not playing a very tight defense anyway. They started to play a little more in the third quarter once they got the fouls to their advantage, because they had zero. They had zero.
Right.
They could be a little more physical and take a little more advantage because they were not going to be putting Indiana to the free throw line. But I really felt like that was one of those that it kind of turned a little bit. The officials were like, well, maybe we better take a little closer look. And I know there were a couple times we saw on the TV, and I had my nephew was at the game texting me that there were a couple times Terry Morin was well out across half court timeout situation, letting the officials know that this wasn't what we think
right.
we should be getting. So
yeah, I definitely read her lips on one of those halfway across the court too.
I did,
and
too,
she was not wrong.
I did too. So let's go on. Let's move into the as expected, Kathy, and I'll let you go first here.
Sure.
Again, for the as expected, what do you got?
Yeah, I've got another rinse and repeat for probably what I've said, I don't know how many times so far this year on the show, but for me, it's the defense again. We held Michigan again. I understand they're without their second leading scorer in Filia, but regardless, they still average as a team right around 77 points per game. We held them well under that at 52 points per game. So even if you would add Filia's, 17 back in, they still don't quite reach that, right? I mean, they're still only at, I'm trying to do the math here in my head, but 69, right? So that would get them to 69 points, still under their 77 points. So I thought our defense was just really on point. And in particular, I thought Chloe Moore McNeil just did a fantastic job on Leah Brown, shutting her down. You know, Leah Brown averages close to 20 points per game, and she got 9 points tonight. You know, they only had one player in double digits with Emily Kaiser at 12. So I thought just overall our defenses, I just can't say enough about them. And it's something we're coming to expect. And don't, just because we come to expect it, you know, reminding our listeners doesn't mean I'm taking it for granted. I'm just always in awe of it. And I loved watching it be there again. I think, what did we end up with? 9 steals as a team as well. So, you know, it was a team effort as well. So
11 steals.
11 steals. I knew we were at 9 at one point. So yeah, we got a couple more after that. So fantastic defensive effort, I thought, from our team, from a pretty close to start to finish. Other than that, you know, a little bit of lapse we've talked about in the fourth quarter, but honestly, I think it was more our lack of focus on offense than lack of defensive effort in that fourth quarter that led to that run. But anyway, for me, defense was the number one as expected thing again tonight.
Yeah, and like you just said, I'll kind of go with that idea too. I thought our defense was really, and I think our defense would have looked, I think we'd be talking a lot more about the defense if we just had a normal fourth quarter. We shot 20% in the fourth quarter. We didn't shoot great the second half overall. We only shot 44%. I say only because we're getting used to this team shooting above 50%.
Yeah.
But if they shoot even 44% in the second half and in the fourth quarter, this game's a 25, type point game, and we would have really been focusing on the defense. Instead, I think we're kind of, sometimes you and I even, as fans kind of get lost, focused on the offense. We still won by 16. It was just kind of the way it came about toward the end, like you said it during your talk about the Amos angle, just that we were, just kind of seemed, out of focus, out of sync, and really were struggling. We missed some easy shots. We missed a few shots right at the rim that we normally make as well in that fourth quarter, which that was a little bit as well. I'm going to go to the as expected a little bit. And I'm going to kind of build off of your talk about defense, but I also was looking at the turnovers, and we forced Michigan into 21 turnovers. Yeah. And when you look at the numbers with that on the in terms of the points off possession, points off turnovers, we got 24 points off of their 21 turnovers. And I know we're not really trying to talk stats, but to me, that's what's come to be expected. This team makes the opposition pay for turning it over.
Right. Yeah. And on the flip side, we take care of that ball too, which is something I think we come to expect. We're averaging right around 13 turnovers, which I'm pretty happy with. That's what we had, 13 turnovers again tonight. So yeah, we definitely won that turnover margin for sure. And we're starting to really come to expect that from this team. They on average force other teams to 17 turnovers. So above that margin again tonight. So, and again, against a really good, very good Michigan team. They're not ranked 12th in the nation, for a reason, right? So right. I just want to reiterate that again, understanding that one person is out, but one person doesn't make a team. So just a good all around team effort again.
Yeah. And you got anything else here on the as expected?
Nope, not for me.
I really don't either. I just, again, we're so used to this team playing so well that I think we don't want to take it for granted, but those were, I think we got most of the things we wanted to see, or as expected, just are so normal that we don't see them that way anymore. So let's move on to the surprises. And I'm going to start here with one that kind of stood out to me. And that was, we really didn't have a very good night passing the ball, or at least it didn't show up in the assist numbers. We only had 13 assists on 26 made baskets. And this is a team that routinely gets over 20 assists a game. Now, again, I think part of that was we missed some shots that we usually make, but I also just, for some reason tonight, Michigan had us out of sync, and we just really never at times seemed to be on the same page like we normally are. But again, get that out of our system tonight. But that was, to me, one of the few surprises I saw tonight.
Yeah, I had a surprise, kind of sort of along the same line that you were talking about with our missed shots. And that was a little bit of a surprise from Grace and Sydney. Both of them just seemed to have an off shooting night. And Grace went only 2 of 10 tonight and ended up with 5 points. And again, it just seems kind of off from her and what we've come to expect from her. And the same thing with Sydney. She'd been, averaging around 12 and a half points a game, ended up with only 3 again tonight on 1 of 5 shooting. Now, of course, we can't say that without also mentioning Sydney had a hard time staying on the floor again tonight, only playing 25 minutes because of getting into foul trouble again. So that is in part some of that, but and this is a couple of games in a row now we've seen that from Sydney. So I'm hoping this is again just a surprise from Sydney and not something we're going to turn into and come to expect. But I still feel that she'll turn that around. And along that, I thought Mac kind of had an off night towards the end, with her shooting too. She's averaging around 70% field goal and ended up at 50 tonight. So just a little bit off, and mostly in the second half, right? Because we were shooting 56% field goal range from the floor. And, we ended up at 40, 43. So definitely that all came in the second half. So just seemed like a little bit off offensively in that second half, I think, is kind of to summarize my surprise.
Yeah. And I want to kind of build off what you're talking about, surprising as far as shooting, especially after the way we shot it overall at Ohio State. But you look at tonight, Sydney, Grace, and Sarah end up combined 3 for 19, if I'm doing my math real quick. So, we really didn't get much from three, from those 3 who we've really kind of come to rely on to get us combined, those 3 about 30 points a game. And we didn't, and like, so I said, I think we're, just one of those nights, didn't shoot it well, but we also played well enough defensively. Like you pointed out just a few minutes ago, we held these guys to basically 25 under their average. So, might have been a little surprising about some of the stuff on the offensive end. I want to say, and with that, I really didn't have any other surprises other than that. But how about you?
No, those are the main ones. I kind of wrapped all of them up into one kind of neat little package for us to talk about.
Yeah, and I will say one thing. As DC has talked about here in the Workaholics DC General, and I don't want to make it sound like it's surprising because we've seen this, and for those people who've been watching the program for a while, but the player development he talks about being really great. And my nephew and I were talking about this in a text. Just he had mentioned tonight just how amazed he was at the development of Chloe Moore McNeil, and I think that's one of the things we shouldn't necessarily classify as a surprise. But that's one thing that we continually see. I even like just this year.
It was
Lily
Grace
Meister,
too. Yeah,
with Grace. And Grace made the improvement from freshman year to this year. But I think we're so used to seeing Grace Berger play.
Yeah,
I don't think we remember her freshman year. But you look at what Lily Meister did tonight. And you're starting to see that development from kids even like Lily Meister and even to a certain degree Lexi Bargesser who as freshman year.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun to see, and Mackenzie Holmes too. She look at the player she's developed into in the 4 years that she's been under Coach Morin and that entire staff. So, and they've have a pretty long together staff too. I know we have one of our assistants is new this year, but a lot of these assistants have been with Coach Morin for a long time. And I think that is also says a lot for Coach Morin and how she must be to work with as well. So overall, I think it's not, it may sound like when Jeff and I are talking about surprises, we're nitpicking, but it is a testament to how good I think this team has been that we're saying, as Mackenzie Holmes had 27 points and I'm saying she had, an off night shooting at 11 of 22. I think it's just a testament to this team and to the coaching staff. And yes, their player development. If you've been watching them the last few years, you can really see how it is coming together. And even this year, you're right. I think Lily Meister, hopefully we'll get into her a little bit more. She had a nice game tonight, I thought.
Yeah, I did too, and maybe now be a good segue to break into go inside the numbers here a little bit, Kathy, and I'll let you go first.
Yeah, we've talked about quite a few of them, but maybe I'll just also touch on fast break points. We really had gone out in that first half, and I think that was part of how we built that, big 14-point lead was we outscored them in fast break points 3-13 in that first half. Now it was a little bit less lopsided, 14-18, but we still won that battle. So that was definitely something that was apparent, especially in the first half, and a lot of that came from steals. steals, right? Chloe Moore McNeil alone had 3 steals in that first half that led into some fast break points. So again, like I think this was a good example of our defense leading us down into offense. And so I love that sign, and I like that statistic to talk about tonight. So 18 fast break points for the team, I thought was really nice.
Yeah, I don't know if it counts as a true team stat, but I'm going to throw this one out here. The magic number is 1. One more win, one more IU win, or one more Iowa loss equals a Big Ten championship, at least a share of or one more IU win equals a share of a Big Ten title at this point. So, that's obviously the most important number. That's the most important number that they can, that we get a chance on Sunday to kind of control our own destiny with that. And that's the other thing, with that. So, but on all serious note, as far as a number for the team, I was really encouraged by the points in the paint. With the fact that Michigan is, sometimes likes to play a little bit of bully basketball. We outscored them in the paint 42-24. And even though we lost the rebounding battle, we still were able to win the points in the paint. And Mac had, as you said, we talk about Mac had 27. So that means we still got 15 other points from, points in the paint. And I thought that was a huge number.
Yeah, I thought so too. And yeah, maybe this will be a good place to segue for one of the numbers for me, which was bench points, actually. So usually our bench points, we're talking about Sarah, right? And she only had 2 tonight, and those were both from free throws. She was 0-4 shooting, but 7 from Lily Meister. And then another 4 from Lexi Vargas in her 4 minutes. And they were efficient. Lily Meister only played 6 minutes and had 7 points. So I think those were probably some of our other points in the paint that, we got. And they came from our bench. And we actually won that points off the bench, our bench points battle here again as well. 13 for us compared to 9 for Michigan. And that's not something, we have been talking about, again, a whole lot this year. While our bench is deeper outside of Sarah, we haven't seen a whole lot of production from our bench in terms of these Big Ten games. So it was really nice, I thought, especially with Lily's play. I just thought that she came in and gave us some really good time and play in those minutes that she got tonight.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about Lily quite a bit here since Christmas. And I really like Lily's game. I really think that she has a very bright future. And when that time comes and she gets a more opportunity to play more significant minutes, whether that's next year or the year after, because it looks like, from what we understand, Mackenzie Holmes is definitely coming back. From everything we're being told, she's not participating in the senior day activities on Sunday. So whether Lily gets more of a role next year or it's the year after, I really like what she brings to this program as well. And I really like the way I thought she got a bogus foul. I'm not a big fan of the step in on the person running down the middle of the floor. Just never been one of my favorite tactics. Even when I was coaching, I didn't like, because we always had a couple teams that seemed like we played that would try that. And I just never liked that. That to me is just not a basketball play. But other than that, I thought Lily played really well. I'm going to segue over into a more individual stat, and that was the 8 rebounds that Yarden Garzon had. And I thought this was one of the better games for Yarden on the glass. And I think that showed me a little bit tonight that she was more in tune to the game tonight maybe than she was on Monday in Columbus, because she was active on the glass. She had 8 rebounds and she hit her first couple shots, or a couple of her first 3 shots, but then just kind of, offensively went away, but she kept rebounding. And I thought that was a big key for this team, is that Yarden was on the glass.
Yeah. And, again, it was a good, I thought, overall team rebounding night. Now, Michigan did out rebound us, but overall, I still thought they did a pretty good job, and Yarden was a huge contributor to that. One other number I wanted to mention again was for Mackenzie Holmes. Again, I know I said this at the beginning, but 5 blocks for her. So I thought it was kind of a funny comment from Megan McCowan, where she said, "Oh, Mackenzie's doing her most Oprah impression." And I'm like, what is she talking about? She goes, oh, Mackenzie's like, you get a block and you get a block and you get a block. And I found that funny.
It was,
So I just wanted to repeat that again, mainly because, again, I think this is a great accomplishment for Mackenzie moving into that second all-time block leader for the program. So just wanted to highlight that great accomplishment again.
Yeah, that is a great accomplishment. I think we're going to talk a lot about in the next few games and in the next year about where Mackenzie Holmes is going to, finish out in some of the rankings on, scoring, rebounding, block shots, things like that as well. So I didn't really have any other individual stats either, unless you had something you wanted to talk about.
No, I don't think so. Maybe just one quick, I was down a little bit on Grace with her shooting. She's getting it done in other ways, right? So again, she led the team, even though we were down in assists, she did lead the team and had 6 of our 13 assists. So, good kudos to Grace for just, she's letting the game come to her again, as expected from a 5th-year senior. So overall, I'm not, like that Grace had a bad game. So I just want to make sure I circle back on Grace. I thought she played great on defense as well.
Yeah, and goes along with 5 rebounds and 2 steals. So I thought Grace she kind of typical Grace Berger game. She's doing a little bit of everything. I think we were all thinking that coming off that Ohio State game on Monday night that maybe she was starting to find her stride again, was going to be a consistent, double-digit scorer. I thought tonight though she looked like she was frustrated. Again, we don't want to harp on the officials, but she had 2 or 3 drives where she got a lot of contact and didn't get a call. And you can just kind of see her facial expression of like, now she didn't do what Nolan did and look at the official and basically like, what the heck are you thinking? But you could see that look on her face. At least what I interpreted from was like, you got to be kidding me that you didn't make that call. And so I thought a little bit of frustration maybe set into Grace tonight but again, you have to watch her enough times to be able to kind of see those changes in her facial expressions, because she has a pretty solid poker face. But I just felt like tonight she kind of looked frustrated with some of the things that weren't getting called.
Yeah, I did too. Overall, though, I thought we had it was a little bit of a down offensive night. We usually were scoring in the higher 70s and or 80s. We're averaging around 80, but I thought it was really balanced. We only had 2 players in double figures, and we still managed to get close to 70 points. So, it was a good team effort, I thought, tonight.
I agree. So I don't have anything else here. If you don't, let's move on to the game ball and the hustle award.
Sounds good.
And I don't think we have any real discussion here about the game ball. And if you're watching on our live YouTube feed, Kathy will be pulling up the running total here so far. As you'll see at the bottom of the screen, Mackenzie Holmes leads the way with 14. Sydney Parrish and Yarden Garzon and Grace Berger each have 3. Sarah Scalia and Chloe Moore McNeil each with 1. Kathy, I'm going to let you go first, but I have a feeling we got a unanimous pick tonight. Again.
Yeah, so we very, very well could. Even with only 11 of 22 shooting, 27 points and 6 blocks, 5 blocks and 5 rebounds. I'm going to give my ball again to Mackenzie Holmes. She was 5 of 6 as well from the free throw line. And it's not just about the stats, right? Like, I don't want to over harp the 27 points. I thought she was really just doing a fantastic job on the defensive end as well. And, Megan McCowan, I think, said it very, very nicely too. On the offensive end, she's like, I don't even know how I would coach somebody to guard her. And that, I think, is just a great testament to how much of a great player she is. And I think for both teams, she was the best player again on the floor tonight.
Yeah, I tweeted this out a little bit in the first on the Doing the Work account on Twitter. I thought I couldn't figure out early on in the game if Michigan was just trying to play her 1v1 or whether the double teams were just coming so late that they weren't getting there in time. I thought they did a better job in the second half of kind of either they made the adjustment at halftime or they did a better job in the second half of getting to her quicker. I thought that really limited her opportunities in the second half a little bit. I thought they almost swarmed her. It wasn't sometimes a double team. It was almost a triple team. So you got the feeling, at least I did, that I had the feeling that they were willing at least to try and play her one-on-one and make the others beat them. Whereas Mackenzie had such a good first half against them that I think they were like, well, that strategy is not working. So they really kind of went down and doubled on her much more actively in the second half. Yeah. But like you said, she only took 22 shots. As a coach, one of the things I always wanted was if my top scorer could score points without having to take a lot of shots. And she got 27 points on 22 shots. That's fairly efficient. There are a lot of players out there who will get 25, 27 points, but they're having to take 30 shots. They're having to take 28 shots to get there. And so it was still, even though it's not the efficiency we're used to from Mackenzie, I thought it was a pretty solid night from Mackenzie. And like you said, she hit her free throw. So I'm going to go with Mackenzie Holmes here as well for the game ball. Now make number 15 for Mackenzie Holmes. game balls for the year. So with that, we'll move over to the Hustle Award. And Kathy will also pull that up here. And this has been one of the great problems to have on this show this year is who to choose for the Hustle Award game after game, because there's usually more than one obvious choice. But Sydney Parrish leads the way on Hustle Awards with 7. Again, if you're watching on the YouTube feed, you can see the scroll at the bottom. Chloe Moore McNeil with 5.5, Grace Berger with 4.5, Willie Meister 2.5, Lexi Bargesser with 2, Alyssa Geary 1, Yarden Garzon 1, Caitlin Peterson 1, and Sarah Scalio with a half of a Hustle Award. And Kathy, I'm going to let you go again first, because I got a feeling you and I are probably going to go the same direction based on our earlier conversations here in the show, but I'll let you go first. Let's see.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. So I think Lily Meister has a strong case for it in terms of her efficiency in the short amount of time that she was out there. So I'm giving her my honorable mention game ball, but my final vote, I think, was definitely going to go to Chloe Moore McNeil tonight. And it's not because she had the second most points, 13, or that she was 5 of 7 from field goal range, including 3 of 5 from 3. She just was a monster on defense. I mentioned her already on Leah Brown, right? You could see from the beginning, she came out, she had her hand in her face. She was really frustrating Brown. Again, just to reiterate for the folks that maybe missed the beginning, Leah Brown averages close to 20 points a game. And Chloe Moore McNeil almost single-handedly, because she was on her most of the night, held her to 9 points. She had 4 rebounds as well, 3 assists. I just thought, and 3 steals total. I thought we expect from our Hustle Awards. Chloe Moore McNeil gets my vote.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to go with Chloe, mostly because of the 3 steals, the 4 rebounds, and the 3 assists. And also, what you talk about the defense. The other thing we haven't talked about, in the first matchup in Ann Arbor, Leah Brown had 31. She went for 31 against us up there. And Chloe, primary assignment tonight, it's a team defense. That's the way Coach Moore talks about it. But she got the primary assignment, and like you said, held Leah Brown to 9. That's 22 points less than she had against us in Ann Arbor. It's like you said, it's about 10 less or almost 11 less than her season average. So again, I'm with you. I thought Lily Meister deserves some honorable mention here, but I'm going to go with Chloe for the Hustle Award. And so that's going to move Chloe up to 6.5. 6.5 on the Hustle Award, still keeping her second place, but she's gaining some ground on Sydney Parrish. So here we go. Now, this is back to our segment where we talk about lingering questions. And it's like, okay, we're 25-1 and 15-1 in the league. What kind of questions do we have? I'm going to start this one out. And this is for one of our friends of the show and our kind of our assembly call fandom as well. I just want to know, is Jared Morris still wearing his new IU women's basketball shirt every game so far? Because if he is, kudos to him. I hope he's still wearing it. All right.
And has he washed it?
and has he washed it? That's an even better point. Because for those of you who don't follow AC and their show was, they did not broadcast tonight because we were having our show tonight. They'll next be on again on Saturday after the Illinois game with their post-game show. But Jared has one of the home field apparel shirts that is for the Indiana women's 1983 championship season. So that's been his kind of go-to attire for every time the women have been playing since. Actually, he's been wearing it for the men's games too, but they've lost a couple. But so hopefully it obviously hasn't jinxed us. But no, seriously, Kathy, I'll throw it over to you first to go with a more serious lingering questions.
The only thing I really have on my mind is, again, hopefully it's just 2 games, but it feels like Sydney's kind of fallen out of the rhythm we had really seen her in for most of the season. She was down again tonight, and she's just seems to have a lot of trouble with getting fouls. And I know, we could argue about some of them, if they were, good fouls or bad fouls, but in particular, she just seems to really get a little out of control on the offensive end. She gets a lot of charge calls coming against her. And I would just like to see that clean back up a little bit, because it's hindering her being on the floor. And, luckily, again, we have Sarah that can come in and give us great minutes off the bench most of the time too. So I'm hoping that's not a lingering question, and that, she kind of turns that around and is able to, maybe keep herself on the floor a little bit. That's about the only lingering question I can come up with.
I just wonder a little bit if, I hate to use the word fatigue, because all the teams are kind of getting to that point. They've played a lot of games. But I think one thing that's definitely going to help this team is after Sunday, they get a full week off. They play in Purdue on Sunday at home, then
Good
don't
timing.
play again until it is, in my opinion, a good time because not only then, but with the double bye, they'll get another another almost full week off again, which again can be good or bad depending upon how you look at it going into the tournament setting like that. But I think that timing is going to actually work out pretty well for this team. If we go back, remember last year, this team definitely looked fatigued at the end of the year because they had to play so many games in such a short span of time because of all the COVID issues that they'd had at the end of January or first part of February last year. And that kind of really cost them in the Big Ten race. And here they are, this year they're kind of finishing up that. My serious, more lingering question here, though, tonight is Sunday is going to be a big game. I mean, we have a sold-out crowd. There's going to be a lot of hype. It's a senior day. For what we know, Grace Berger and Alyssa Geary are going to go through senior day festivities. Grace doesn't have any more time left. I mean, she's out of her. This is her COVID year. She was definitely going to be done at the end of this year. But I always felt like senior day was kind of a double-edged sword. It's an opportunity for people to show how much they appreciate everything you did. But I also felt like players sometimes could get almost overworked into it to where they wanted to play so well that they actually were so tight that they didn't play well. And I don't know if that'll be a case with a player like Grace Berger. She's such a level-headed kid. But, I mean, it's going to be a huge crowd against your biggest rival, at least on paper, and a chance to clinch, at least at that point, at least a tie for the Big Ten title. Iowa plays tomorrow, and they're playing Nebraska tomorrow. Now, Nebraska's done some quirky things and won at home against some teams, but more than likely Iowa should win tomorrow night. So at that point, they have a chance on Sunday to get to clinch a share of the Big Ten title. So a lot of things. Can they keep their focus? Can they get their legs under them a little bit? Because I think you're right. I think Sydney is struggling a little bit. I think at different times I thought maybe even Grace looked a little tired tonight. And even maybe to a certain degree, Mackenzie looked tired a little bit at points tonight. But so that Sunday game, big game, and it's going to be packed. And we'll be here afterwards with the post-game show. I'll be interested to see what their mental focus, what their what their emotions are like on Sunday against Purdue. That's kind of the lingering question I have. I got a feeling it's going to be pretty good, but again, I just know sometimes you can get almost so worked up about senior day, too hype that you're almost trying too hard.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
And by the way, the other thing we'll pass along here, for those who didn't see it on our Twitter feed or aren't available in the community, the IU Iowa game is going to be College Game Day is going to be out in Iowa City on that Sunday for that game with IU and Iowa. So that's a big deal. All those things kind of add up. I saw some of the people in the Workaholics talking about recruiting and things like that. When you get game day, even though it's at Iowa City, when you're a part of that game, that can't help. It can't do anything but help recruiting. So anything else you got here, Kathy, about lingering questions or anything?
No, I sure don't.
I don't either. And I sometimes feel like we're almost nitpicking on some lingering questions. So let's move on. Let's preview our next opponent, the Purdue Boilermakers. Game time is 12 o'clock Eastern, 11 a.m. Central. That's Sunday. It'll be on BTN. Grace Berger and Alyssa Geary, as we just mentioned, will be participating in the senior day activities. IU is 39-53 all time against Purdue, including 21-21 in Bloomington. IU has won 8 in a row in the series, 12 of the last 13. IU won the earlier matchup in West Lafayette this season, 69-46. Purdue is 17-7 overall, 8-6 in the conference. They were supposed to play last night, but unfortunately with the tragedy at Michigan State, that game got canceled. I doubt it gets made up. I really doubt at this point it gets made up. So they have not played since last Sunday when they beat Northwestern 76-61. And I'll throw it over to Kathy for some more of the preview.
Yeah. So as a team, Purdue is averaging just around 72 points per game. That's good for 9th in the Big Ten. And they give up 64 points per game, which is only 4th in the Big Ten. They do out-rebound their opponents by a slim margin of 1. Just for FYI, in the earlier matchup, we did win that rebounding battle 41-34. In terms of shooting, they are shooting 45.6% field goal and 33.6% from 3-point land. They hold their opponents to 38% field goal, which is first in the Big Ten, and just under 30% 3-point shooting. So defense is definitely something that Purdue is a little stronger on. They do force around 16 turnovers per game, but they also force that same amount of 16 turnovers per game. And in terms of assists, they averaged right around 17 assists per game. In terms of some individual numbers for Purdue, they have 3 players that average double figures. Lasha Petrie is leading the team at 14 points per game. She also has 5.9 assists per game, which is she had 13 in the first meeting. They have Abby Ellis, who has 11.5 points per game, who had 10 in the first meeting. Caitlin Harper at 11 points per game at 7 rebounds in the first in 7 rebounds per game, and she had 7 against us in the first meeting. And then Janae Terry averages 7.8 rebounds per game. That's 5th in the Big Ten. She's 2nd in the Big Ten at assists per game at 6.5. And then she is 2.1 steals per game, which is 3rd in the Big Ten. And then lastly, Katie Garrels is in her 2nd season as head coach of the Boilermakers. Her record is 34-22 up in West Lafayette. She has spent 8 years prior to that at Marion, and her career record overall is 262-72. So a good record there for Coach.
Yeah, we had a big win up there, but Terry scares me a little bit because she was held scoreless in that game up at West Lafayette, and she's not a big double-digit scorer, but just the fact that you held a player who does so much for them, assists, rebounds, steals, to 0. I think she's going to be looking to come out and have a big game. So I'm going to be interested to see who we have guarding her to get to start that game as well. Obviously, we've talked about the magnitude of the game. So, hey, if you want to follow also what's going on with some of our Hoosier alums playing around the world right now, get on and follow us on Twitter. And if you go to Twitter and search "Doing the Work," you'll find us there, and we keep you updated about our alums around the world. I haven't had a chance to update today, but both Alexa Golbe and Nikki Cardano Hillary were both in action today in Spain. You can follow us, as I mentioned, on Twitter or check out the Assembly Call community page. Assembly Call will be on Saturday after the Illinois game with their post-game show. Want to say that's roughly it'll be at 2:00 Central. I think that's a noon start Eastern, 11 or 1:00 Eastern, 12 Central. I'd have to go back and look at the time.
It's 11. The men's game on Saturday is noon Eastern, 11 Central.
So we look for the post-game show roughly 2:00 and 1:00, 2:00 Eastern, 1:00 Central. Also, be sure to catch and subscribe to the next episode of Crimson Cast. They also have a part of their Crimson Cast with a podcast dedicated to the women. It's part of the Back Home Network family, and also the Hoosier Morning After podcast, as they have been giving us some shout outs on their show as well. So we'll give them a little bit of love. Our next show will be Sunday, the 19th at approximately 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 Central, as we'll be live following the Purdue game. And hopefully with a lot of things to talk about in celebration, but we'll try to tamp that down a little bit.
No, we won't.
No, I meant as far as until we get to Sunday.
Yes.
All right, so it's time for last call, and we're going to throw it over to Kathy. What's on your mind as we wrap it up tonight?
Yeah, Jeff, just again, a huge congratulations to our women and great win by our Lady Hoosiers once again. And, we got 2 more regular seasons games and they're big games. First, we have Purdue coming up, as mentioned already, this Sunday in front of a first ever sold out Assembly Hall crowd for a women's game. So just huge. And then they come over here to my neck of the woods. For those of you who maybe don't know, I live in Des Moines. So I will be there in person with the other thousands and thousands and another sold out crowd in Iowa City, taking on the Hawkeyes once again. So, it's a lot to play for. Not even if we, beat Purdue, we only clinch a potential share of the Big Ten, and we want to win it outright. And and that would be fantastic. We haven't actually ever won the Big Ten regular season outright. It would be huge for this program yet to set another record. In 1983, the inaugural season of the Big Ten for women's basketball, we won a share of it, but we did not win it outright. So I would love for our women to keep rolling here and win these next 2 games, but one game at a time, and let's focus on first beating those Boilermakers once again.
Yeah, and for me, last call, simply, root the women on. Obviously, it's a sellout, so if you got tickets, go there, shout as loud as you can, help them pull them to a victory, and celebrate afterwards on the senior day activities. They've been kind of coy about what they're going to do, if anything, after the game, if they actually win, to clinch a share of the Big Ten title. And such. So we'll see what happens there. The other thing, and this will happen in between that Purdue game and the Iowa game, Iowa actually has an extra game there. We actually were 1 game ahead. We're a game and a half ahead because we're 15-1. They're sitting at 14-2, or 13-2, 14-2. But they still have to play at Maryland during the week next week. And that game that obviously has a lot of ramifications terms for both those teams in terms of possible seeding for the Big Ten tournament. But also it will give us a much better idea of what we've got coming up with that. So, but for me, just again, kudos to this team and to Coach Moore and the coaches, the players, for everything that they're accomplishing, and just want to keep riding it as long as we can, hopefully as deep into March as we can. So for Kathy Amos, if you want, or I should say it this way, if you want to see us do the show live and be a part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/assembly call. You can be part of our private community as well. Join for free today at assemblycall.com/community. Special thanks to John Ringer of Rig Design for designing our new logo. Also, a big thank you to Bob Thompson for our new music that you heard through the broadcast. And thank you for listening. For all you who are joining us tonight here on the live YouTube feed and the Workaholics, we'll be back to talk IU hoops again with you on Sunday. Until then, keep your elbow in, your eyes on the rim, and go Hoosiers.
Maybe. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Well, great.
The Workaholics who was giving us great feedback.
Yeah.
That was a great show.
Yeah, thanks a lot,
really
everyone, for being with us. Yeah,
we tried to keep it a little short because as late as it is, it may not be late, for some people that are watching this if you're on a slower time zone, but in where I'm at in Indiana, it's got to be closing in on about 10:15, 10:30. So so
it is 10:15
on the dot. For those of you who are on the Eastern time zone, obviously it's 11:15. But we appreciate everybody who's here. We really do. Also, help spread the word. Tell your friends and family and things like that to enjoy IU women's basketball to join and come down and watch us and listen to the podcast on either Apple or Spotify or wherever you happen to get podcasts. So,
absolutely.
I want to thank Kathy for being here tonight. She's had a long day, and I want to thank her for being here tonight. So she's always such a great co-host.
Appreciate it. It was fun to do. So, all right. Well, we'll talk Sunday for sure.
Yes,
so
we'll talk Sunday.
We'll see you Sunday afternoon, everyone.
Yep. See you guys.
Bye-bye.